Okay, I'd like to call this special committee of the whole meeting to order. It is August 11th at 6:30 PM. Addie, would you call the roll, please?
Cobb.
Here.
Kuda.
Here.
Petrus.
Here.
Larson.
Here.
Maddox.
Here.
Russell. Posh.
Here.
And Russell is on Zoom.
Very good. We're here tonight to talk about Lower Lake and Northeastern Ohio Regional Sewer District is going to do a presentation a little after 7 o'clock with Shaker Heights City Council, and we're going to be appearing via Zoom. But we do have a few pieces of business to take care of between now and 7. And the first order of business is a charter review workshop. We're going to try to finish and I hopefully succeed in finishing the charter review that Law Director Hannah has presented us I want to say a draft. We'll call it working draft. And so the first time we're going to meet about this is August 14th. And then we also have, did August 21st work out yet?
I'm just waiting to hear back from one person about August 21st at 2:30. So that's tentative. And then August 25th at 6 p.m. is also tentative. But I believe we do have quorum for both days, so I can.
All right. And then, you know, we do have a meeting scheduled September 2nd, which is the day after Labor Day. So we actually meet on a Tuesday in September. I'm sure we'd all like to finish before then. I know the Board of Elections would appreciate it. And so with that in mind, these hour-and-a-half sessions, you know, I can't really say in this moment that that's enough, but I just want everybody to be prepared to get together as often as we need to get the work done. Any concerns or additions to what we just talked about? Go ahead, Councilwoman Larson.
The timeline, can you refresh my memory, please, in terms of when we need to get it back or send it on to the Board of Elections?
So September 4th is their deadline, but they don't want us to turn it in on September 4th. So that's the drop dead deadline.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Sure. Councilman Posh?
So we have a red line and a blue line version of this. How are we going to be having our conversation? I mean, there's been, every time we've been meeting, we've all been sort of using we've all been on different pages of a different master document. So I think we're using the one that is the amended charter as of 8/4/25.
Correct.
Yes, it should be labeled red line of first amended CH charter of 8/4/25 versus current.
Yeah, we'll all be on that one this time and no discrepancy.
Do we have kind of a summary table of the changes? Or is it just going to be, we're just going to go through the red line?
I believe we're just going through the red line. I haven't received anything else other than what you guys did.
Maybe when we're going through this, we can have a scribe or someone kind of go through and sort of detail what some of the notable changes are.
Well, Director Hannah's back on Wednesday. I would suggest contacting him, or maybe I'll have him send us a memo kind of describing what our first go-round will be on the 14th and what we need to be paying attention to as far as changes go. I know that Addie pretty much kept notes at every meeting, and I know they met and talked about the changes that we suggested, that we had a consensus on. And then I know there were also a few things that came up since mid-April, I want to say, is when we probably had our last charter review. We had several meetings in January, February, March, and April. But I mean, that would be a question for Director Hannah.
Well, I'm thinking, I mean, some of these things are pretty cut to the chase, like, okay, well, signature requirements, you know, this is what it was, this is
What it is.
I mean, you can dig through the red line and find it, but that is a lot of digging, which, you know, I think we're all willing to go through. But I think members of the community aren't going to read a 30, 40-page document.
But I think anybody that attends any of these sessions, either Zoom or in person, will, through our discussion, be able to see what it is we're doing.
Okay.
Yeah, it'd be great if everybody in the community read it, but that's probably not
It
realistic.
seems like good work from what I've seen so far.
Yeah, so, yeah, definitely. Any other questions about the charter review? All right, so I created an outline of a resolution of support for the Cleveland Heights Police Department. I'd like permission from council to go forward with it and present it on the 18th.
Have you provided us with that outline or?
No,
Okay.
but it is, I mean, what I've done so far is I wrote I could call it a draft. I sent it to Addie. Addie's working on it. I'm more than happy to send. Do you have something we could send now? Okay, so, but it basically just says that we stand behind the police department and support the work they're doing. You know, just to make sure that council also has a unified statement based on, the past couple of weeks.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I'd like to see it, just what was written out, and be more comfortable moving anything forward. So it'd be helpful if whenever it's worked out, you guys can kind of send it over so I can at least take a look at what's been requested.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of discussed that we would bring up the concepts first in committee of the whole. I mean, I'm not asking anybody to vote on anything today, but, we'll all be seeing it on probably Wednesday or Thursday. Do we have a projection for the packet coming out this week?
Hopefully Thursday.
Okay. So everybody will see it on Thursday. I just want to know if the concept is supported enough that we could move this forward, because we did talk about not moving forward without bringing the concept to the committee of the whole. Go ahead.
Yes, I support you working with the law department or Addie to put that together, and would like to see the draft after it's put together.
Sure.
Same here.
Okay.
Myself as well.
Okay. All right.
Mr. President, we do have a raised hand on
Yeah,
Zoom.
go ahead. Mayor?
Hello?
Now we can hear you.
All right. So I just wanted to briefly state that, for certainly my time, both on council and in this role, I have been very supportive of the police division, just generally through our, budgeting, providing equipment and sort of a modernization of how we do the work, and additional supports as well, like our first call and other, initiatives like the continuing work that we're doing for the violence prevention program that we are still funded by the federal government to do, and working through those technical issues now. Yeah, obviously, if it's possible, I think that it would make a lot of sense for a completely united front with both of our respective branches to sorry. So I just wanted to ask if it would be possible for me to get a copy of that draft as well to take a look.
Of course.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President.
Sure. Anything else on the, moving forward with the resolution? All right, lastly, I wanted to recognize Steve Byron is here. This is the attorney that we hired, both at the request of council and at the request of our law director, to create a space where we don't have any conflict of interest in-house. And Mr. Byron, we appreciate your being here tonight.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great, thank you. I don't actually have anything else on the agenda right now. Anybody else have under other? We could certainly entertain anything. If not, we'll just take a break and come back at 7 o'clock. All right. Well, there you go.
Mayor, you're still muted.
Okay, you can start again. Sorry.
Okay. Well, the joke wasn't that great, so I won't repeat the joke again. Good evening, everyone. My name is David Weiss. I'm the mayor of Shaker Heights. And we have a little bit of an unusual order of things today. We have actually two meetings. The Shaker Heights City Council has a, is it on? Yeah, just speak closer. You just got to speak closer to it. Is just speak closer. Okay. So we have the Shaker City Council has a special meeting. We will start with that. After that meeting ends, we'll come back and begin the joint work session. When we come back for the joint work session, then I'll give you a little bit more protocol and process for how we'll handle the meeting this evening, the joint session. So we are going to start, as I've mentioned, with the special meeting, and we will start with the roll call. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Bixenstein? Here. Mr. Claytor?
Here.
Mrs. Kaus?
Here.
Mr. Malone?
Here.
Mrs. Moore?
Here.
Ms. Ann Williams?
Here.
Ms. Camilla Williams?
Here.
For special meetings, we do just public comment on agenda items, but only agenda items. So there are two items relating to the confirmation of Matthew Carroll for Chief Administrative Officer and Clerk of Council. If there's any public comment on those two agenda items, please come on up. Situation.
We can't hear you.
I think we're already pretty up there. Volume.
I know better than to try to change the technology. Is that better? Okay. All right, seeing no other public comment, we'll close the public comments and go to the two items on the special meeting agenda. Because they are related, I'm going to just make some brief introductory remarks, and then we'll proceed on those two items. As many of you know, Ms. Chaikin, who has been our CAO and Clerk of Council for 24 years, has announced that she will be retiring at the end of September. We all acknowledge that those are very big shoes to fill, but we started over several months ago the process of searching for a new CAO, which would be the third we've had in 50 years, something like that. After a very thorough and competitive selection process, with candidates coming from near and far, these are two positions under our charter and ordinances that are appointed by the mayor and then need to be confirmed by city council. So after the thorough selection process, I made the decision to appoint Matt Carroll as CAO as well as our clerk of council. Matt brings a wealth of information and experience and in public administration, has demonstrated leadership capabilities and a strong alignment with the city's values. He is exceptionally well suited to fill this position. Everything from leadership skills, his fiscal and operational oversight, his experience dealing with legislative bodies, his vision and strategy that he discussed during the selection process made it clear he was a terrific fit. On top of that, he's got great communications and interpersonal skills, great cultural fit, and a work ethic that is second to none. So for those of you who don't know Matt, he has over 35 years of experience in a wide range of positions. He was with the law firm of Baker and Hostetler. He worked for the city of Cleveland. He is taught at CSU and has been held in numerous positions with Cuyahoga County. He has volunteered on more not-for-profit groups than I can keep track of. He currently is on the board of Say Yes to Education, the Cuyahoga Workforce Funders Group, and Global Cleveland. On a more personal note, he's a graduate of Brown University and Georgetown Law School. He's married to Laura Kleinman, who is with us tonight as well. Laura is the executive director of Senior Transportation Connections. They have two adult boys who both went through the Shaker schools. Laura and Matt lived in the Ludlow neighborhood for 20 years. So with that background, I am very pleased to appoint Matt for these two positions. So with that, we'll start with the first ordinance, which is an ordinance confirming the appointment of Matthew P. Carroll as the Chief Administrative Officer of the City of Shaker Heights, effective September 3rd, 2025. So are there any comments or questions from council?
If there's no comments from council, I'll move approval.
Moved by Mr. Claytor. Is there a second?
Go ahead.
I would second.
Seconded by Ms. Carmela Williams. Would the clerk please call the roll on suspension?
Ms. Bixenstein?
Aye.
Mr. Claytor?
Aye.
Mrs. Kaus?
Aye.
Mr. Malone?
Aye.
Mrs. Moore?
Aye.
Ms. Ann Williams? Aye. Ms. Carmela Williams?
Aye.
And on enactment. And on enactment.
Ms. Bixenstein?
An enthusiastic aye.
Mr. Claytor?
Aye.
Mrs. Kaus? Aye. Mr. Malone?
Aye.
Mrs. Moore?
Aye.
Ms. Ann Williams?
Aye.
Ms. Carmela Williams?
Aye.
The second motion is affirming the mayor's appointment of Matthew Carroll as clerk of council for the remainder of the current 2-year term and designating the director of law and the assistant directors of law as clerks of council pro tem in the absence of the clerk of council. I'm going to turn this one over to our law director, Mr. Gruber.
Thank you, Mayor. Get feedback. The mayor's already explained that we or he has appointed Matthew Carroll as clerk of council for the remainder of a current 2-year term. So the codified ordinance, the charter for the clerk says that the clerk is appointed for a 2-year term coinciding with each 2-year organization of council. So this council approved Ms. Chaikin as clerk of council back in 2023 for a term ending this year. So council is being asked tonight to approve the appointment of Mr. Carroll for as clerk of council for the period ending this year. And so we'll have to to revisit this issue again by the end of this year, or probably at the beginning of next year, with the reorganization of council as we do every couple of years. There's one correction, a typo in section 3. The term appointed should be affirmed. So if that's okay with council, then the motion should just say you move as amended.
I move approval with that one change. I'll second.
Moved by Mrs. Moore, seconded by Ms. Bixenstein. Would the clerk please call the roll on suspension?
Ms. Bixenstein.
Aye.
Mr. Claytor.
Aye.
Mrs. Kaus. Aye. Mr. Malone.
Aye.
Mrs. Moore. Aye. Ms. Ann Williams.
Aye.
Ms. Carmela Williams.
Aye.
And on enactment?
Ms. Bixenstein.
Aye.
Mr. Claytor.
Aye.
Mrs. Kaus. Aye. Mr. Malone.
Aye.
Mrs. Moore. Aye. Ms. Ann Williams.
Aye.
Ms. Carmela Williams.
Aye.
Great, thank you. Welcome. Last item on the special meeting is the calendar that you have in front. Is there any? Okay. Are there any changes or corrections to the calendar? Okay. Seeing and hearing no other changes, we'll go ahead and with the calendar as presented. If there are changes, let us know. With that, that will end our special meeting. So we will now go into a joint work session of the two city councils of Shaker Heights and Cleveland Heights. We do have some just protocols to make sure things move smoothly this evening. For those who may not be with us in person, Shaker City Council is here present in its council chambers in Shaker Heights. We also have representatives of the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District here with us in council chambers. Council for Cleveland Heights are in, as I believe they are in their council chambers. Council member Davita Russell is virtual, but I believe everyone else is present in Cleveland Heights, and they have dialed into our virtual meeting. So the order of things today will go as we expect the meeting length to be about 2 hours, give or take, depending on how things go. We'll begin with an introduction by Kyle Dreyfus Wells, the president and CEO of the Sewer District, as well as Matt Sharver, the director of the Watershed Programs. The Sewer District will then make a presentation about 20 to 30 minutes. Following that first half hour of presentation and introductions, we will have a Q&A which is dedicated to the council members of both Cleveland Heights and Shaker Heights for approximately a half hour for council to ask questions. After that, we will open it up to the public. See if that's better. So we will take public comment and rotate back and forth between Cleveland Heights and Shaker Heights to ask questions We'll then ask for comments from those who may be online as well. We will handle the comments by having people come up to the podium because we have we're live streaming this and have remote people virtually. They are unable to hear any comments unless you're speaking directly into the microphone at the podium. So we ask that you please do that for us.
Mr. Mayor, can you hear me? This is Tony Kuda from Cleveland Heights City Council. Can you hear me? Yeah. We are having trouble hearing you. So if there's something that the tech on the other end can do to boost the sound, we could use more volume here in Cleveland Heights. Thank you.
Okay, we will see what we can do.
Having Frank come in.
Got feedback last time I tried that. Ms. Kudik, is that better? Can you hear?
That is better. Thank you.
You're welcome. To accommodate everyone who would like to speak tonight, to accommodate all those who wish to speak tonight, we're asking each speaker to be limited to 2 minutes in length. We will let the speaker know when they have about 15 seconds left, but this will enable us to have permit as many people as possible to comment. When you come up, we would request that you provide your name and address, again, so that people know who is speaking at the microphone. If you have a question to ask or a comment to make, please try to be brief and stay within the 2 minutes limitation. You also don't need to repeat comments made prior. If you wish to say simply, I agree with the prior speaker or so-and-so, that is fine. Comments and questions, once we get into this part of the meeting, really should be addressed to Mr. Sharver on behalf of the sewer district, and he will have either others comment for him or with him. Lastly, as always, we ask that everyone be respectful in their comments. We know this is an emotional issue for many people, but we hope that you will take this opportunity to respect others who may have different opinions than you. We are unlikely to get to everyone tonight based on the size of the room. And so the sewer district may or may not be able to answer questions this evening, but to the extent they are unable to do that, there is an opportunity at actually 3 more public meetings that are coming up, and the sewer district will respond to those questions and comments at that time. For those of you who may not be aware, on Tuesday, August 19th, from 6 to 7, there is a virtual public meeting being hosted by the sewer district from 6 p.m. To 7 p.m. on Zoom. And then on Wednesday, August 20th, there will be 2 live sessions, one from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. and a second meeting from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. at the Lee Road Library at 2345 Lee Road in Cleveland Heights. With that, we will turn it over to Ms. Dreyfus-Wells and Mr. Sharver.
Excuse me, I'm sorry to butt in. We cannot hear the speaker at all. And there's absolutely no sound coming through to Cleveland Heights.
Okay,
I gotta turn on the podium mic.
There you go.
Council President Kuda, can you hear me now?
Yes, it could be louder, though.
Okay.
Pointed,
If
yeah.
the tech could turn, oh,
Once I go handheld.
very good.
Well, thank you very much. Council President, can you hear me now? Does this sound good?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, good evening, everyone, and members of the Shaker Heights and Cleveland Heights Councils, folks joining here, as well as Cleveland Heights City Hall and on Zoom. I'm Kyle Dreyfus Wells, CEO of the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District, and I want to thank you for inviting us to speak about our changed recommendation for Lower Lake. This change is something we have not taken lightly. I grew up here, I raised my family here, and I am a committed Shaker resident. I know that this is a big deal. It's a big deal to me, and I understand why it's a big deal to everyone here tonight. We thank you for taking the time. What's wrong, Jerry? Okay. We thank you for taking the time to come talk with us. We're interested in your questions, comments, concerns tonight and at any other time. I speak for myself and for our team when I say that we know the value of this watershed and the Shaker Parklands. The Parklands have shaped this community for generations and will continue to do so. So tonight, you're going to hear a lot of information. We want you to understand the changed recommendation and why we are making it. Matt Sharver, our Director of Watershed Programs, who will do the presentation, and several other sewer district folks are in the audience here, as well as at Cleveland Heights City Hall. So sewer district folks that are here, if you can raise your hands. All right, so there's your sewer district team. And Cleveland Heights, raise your hands. Matt and I made the original recommendation in 2021 to remove Horseshoe Lake Dam, restore Doan Brook, and rebuild Lower Lake Dam to current safety standards. And we made the decision to change that recommendation based on new information we gathered and analyzed in the end of 2024 and the beginning of 2025. We know that this is a big change. We also had strong reactions when we saw the new information and the new modeling. We followed where that new information led us, and it led us here. We collectively at the sewer district have had time to question, review, and understand this change. And we want to ensure that you have the time and the information to do the same. So Matt will briefly provide an update on the Doan Brook restoration at Horseshoe Park project. He'll walk through the safety deficiencies in Lower Lake Dam that necessitate that that dam either be rebuilt to current safety standards or removed. And he'll lay out the timeline and details of what we knew when in the revision of our recommendation. Matt is going to talk about two problems in the Doan Brook watershed that bring the sewer district into this conversation. And I want to highlight those before he begins because he's going to go back and forth between these issues. And it's helpful, at least for me, in the framing of the conversation at the start. So one is building and road flooding from stormwater runoff. We know there is flooding at Coventry and North Park roads and flooding in University Circle. This is happening now. It's a public safety concern, and it's something that has to be addressed. The other issue he will discuss is the potential for failure of the Lower Lake Dam, classified by the Ohio Department of Natural Resources as a Class 1 high hazard dam because of the probable loss of life downstream if that dam should breach. This has not happened and is not something that we want to ever happen. There would also be flooding associated with this catastrophic breach of the dam. So two issues, flooding in University Circle at Coventry and North Park, and the potential for a catastrophic breach of Lower Lake Dam. Before turning to Matt, I want to center us on where we are in the process. We have completed pre-design on the Lower Lake Dam reconstruction. The results of that pre-design, in part, are what has led to our changed recommendation. If the cities would like to move forward with the restoration of Doan Brook at Lower Lake, and we know that there is much discussion before any decision is made, we would begin a new pre-design process for that stream restoration. That process would include extensive public involvement and engagement, like you saw for the Doan Brook restoration at Horseshoe Park. We would discuss things like potential open water, walking trails, and other passive recreation opportunities for these 17 acres, as well as the alignment of the restored stream. We at the Sewer District are committed to that process and exploring those ideas should the cities decide to move forward with dam removal and stream restoration. But tonight, we're here to talk to you about the process for our changed recommendation. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Matt. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Weiss, Shaker Heights council members. Good evening, Mayor Sarin, Council President Kuda, and council members for Cleveland Heights. Before we get into my name's Matt Sharver. I'm the Director of Watershed Programs. Before we get into the discussion of the Lower Lake Dam recommendation, the revised recommendation, as CEO Dreyfus Wells mentioned, I'm going to give you a preview of some information about the project at Horseshoe Lake. And we'll go through some information about the challenges within the Doan Brook watershed. We'll talk about the 2021 Stormwater Master Plan that brought us initial understanding of how to address and deal with the lakes in Shaker Lakes. And so points in time will be very important as we move through the presentation this evening. We'll provide you some updated information on the additional modeling information that we've gathered and that analysis that has brought us forward to this new revised recommendation for the Lower Lake Dam. And then we'll conclude with some costs and next steps. So first, we'll talk a little bit about the Regional Stormwater Management Program. So the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District has a Regional Stormwater Management Program. There are three pillars to that program. One is to address flooding. Second is to arrest stream bank erosion. And third is to address water quality along about 489 miles of what we call the regional stormwater system. And that's throughout 57 communities that are members of the Regional Stormwater Management Program under the Sewer District program. So we apply that throughout the region along the regional stormwater system.
I'm sorry, Matt, we're having trouble. You're going to have to get real close to the mic, or in Cleveland Heights, we're not going to be able to hear you.
Understood, Council President. So what that means is anything that drains 300 acres or more along that regional system that the district is operating and addressing. So let's take a look at the Doan Brook restoration at Horseshoe Park. So this is the project that's underway in terms of design. We're at the 100 design process. We've received the 100 design plans. It's currently moving through the review process. There are federal, state, and local approvals that we're working through, and we hope to be moving through that approval process and out to bid later this fall and into construction in the first quarter of 2026. So nothing at Horseshoe Park has been touched in terms of the restoration. So if you're out there, nothing has started yet. It's not approved yet for construction, and that will happen in 2026. All of the amenities that both Shaker Heights and Cleveland Heights have agreed to fund at an estimate of $7.2 million are still included in that 100% design effort. And you can see that the sewer district's contribution to restore the Doan Brook after removing Horseshoe Lake Dam, his contribution is estimated at about $24 million. So this is an image that we've shown several times in our different public forums. This is a rendering of the completed project, and you can see the different north branch, the middle branch of Doan Brook flowing right to left on your screen through the former dam, which will now be a reconstructed bridge that will connect North Park and South Park on down through the existing part of the park to the west to Lee Road. So this just gives you an image of how things stand at the 90% rendering. And here you can see from an aerial view, that same graphic showing the two streams converging just slightly upstream of where the dam used to be, all the floodplains and wetland recreation within the former lake bed that helps us address water quality for the Doan Brook. So again, this project is moving forward as planned. So I mentioned Donebrook watershed concerns, and I'm going to show you a map in a minute of the watershed, so it helps with some of the understanding. But right now, there are multiple problems across the Donebrook watershed, but we're going to focus on the lower Shaker Lake Dam and then the flooding in University Circle, because they are related, but they are also separate. And so that's part of the understanding of this revised recommendation. And as I move through the presentation, this will be reiterated with additional information. This is an outline of the Donebrook watershed. So that black outline outlines the water that moves through the north branch, the middle branch, the south branch, as they all converge together and form the main branch. The Shaker Lakes are in the upper watershed. University Circle is positioned in the middle watershed, and the lower reaches of Donebrook carry through, flow through the cultural gardens in the city of Cleveland on their way out to Lake Erie. This zoomed in image shows the lakes within the Donebrook watershed. And so intuitively, you would think lakes in the upper watershed, they should be able to provide flood control. They should provide stormwater management. But from our analysis, we've determined that, in fact, they do not. And that's the importance of doing the modeling, which is understanding the hydrology and hydraulics as it moves through the watershed. So we'll dive in a little deeper in that information as we go forward. This slide is important, so I'm going to take a little bit of time on this timeline slide because points in time help to understand how this revised recommendation unfolded or evolved over time. So I had mentioned the 2021 Stormwater Master Plan. The district launched the Chagrin River Lake Erie Direct Tributaries Master Plan in and around 2019, 2020. And then we moved to where we were receiving recommendations from that master plan in and around 2021. At which time, Lower Lake Dam was being recommended to be replaced. It was found that there were notable flood benefits to keeping the Lower Lake Dam at that time, based on that planning level study in 2021. At that time, we also determined that Horseshoe Lake Dam and the lake itself were not needed for flood control and did not provide any flood control benefit. And we moved forward with the recommendation to remove Lower Lake Dam or Horseshoe Lake Dam and restore the Donebrook in Horseshoe Lake Park, which is now Horseshoe Park. Within that time frame, our stormwater inspection and maintenance teams were out inspecting the watershed. And if you're not familiar with University Circle, Donebrook disappears in University Circle. It goes into a culvert in Ambler Park and flows in a culvert for about a mile before it pops out again at the Cleveland Museum of Art. And so we had inspected that culvert and found that there's a significant amount of sediment debris, mainly sand, gravel, cobble, boulders in the culvert that hadn't been cleaned for some time. So we mobilized and cleaned that culvert, removing about 700 cubic yards of debris in and around 2021. I'm telling you this because it's important to understand that prior to that cleaning, the Donebrook culvert in University Circle only provided a 2-year level of service. By cleaning that culvert, which was a recommendation under our Stormwater Master Plan, we raised or improved the level of service to a 10-year frequency. And I'll show you some images more to help you understand what I'm talking about, 2-year, 10-year storm events. But it's an important piece of the timeline. That culvert is extremely important to conveyance of Donebrook. There's no floodplain in University Circle. It's all carried by pipe. The 2021 Master Plan also made an assumption that anything that we do, we need to have more conveyance in University Circle because of the flooding issues in University Circle. University Circle sits low in the landscape in the middle of the watershed. So additional conveyance is necessary to raise or improve the level of service or reduce the amount of flooding to the buildings, transportation, and utility assets in the University Circle area. So in 2023-24, we launched a feasibility study to understand where we could build an additional culvert, not a new culvert for Donebrook, but an additional culvert. So the 1-mile culvert will remain, and we're going to build a sister culvert beside it somewhere. But in 2021, we didn't know where that would be. There's a lot of utilities in that corridor. There's a lot of above ground cultural resources, Liberty Oaks. So we had to be very careful of how we could determine how we would build a culvert. So that feasibility study helped us see different alternatives, which I'll show you an image in the presentation going forward. All on the while, we're still working on the Horseshoe Dam removal because that dam is essentially deteriorating as each storm rolls through. So we were advancing that project and having our public forums with the public. While we were doing that, we also launched, as the CEO Dreyfus Wells mentioned, in 2023, the pre-design effort for understanding the reconstruction of the Lower Lake Dam. So we're doing all these things at the same time to solve the issues within the watershed. And it wasn't until October of 2024, we came to the public in a public forum and shared our initial findings of the pre-design effort, where we started to see what the dam reconstruction would look like, some initial cost estimates, how it's going to fit into the landscape, and what it means for the watershed. Moving forward to January of 2025, we received the finalized pre-design report for Lower Lake, which showed us a great deal of information in terms of escalated costs, challenges with aesthetics, and additional analysis that showed us that we need to take a pause and understand if the dam reconstruction is really going to provide what we thought was a notable flood control in 2020, 2021 in 2025. And so I'll move us forward to help you understand how we came through that information. First, I want to just reset the roles and responsibilities, and we've shown these graphics in the presentations in our public forums before, but it's important to revisit. Ohio Department of Natural Resources, as many of you know, is the responsible entity for dam safety in the state of Ohio by state statute. Shaker Heights and Cleveland Heights are the dam operators. They are responsible to comply with Ohio Department of Natural Resources standards and meet those standards for any Class 1 high hazard dams. The city of Cleveland is the property owner. They're the underlying property owner. They hold the long-term leases with both the cities of Shaker Heights and Cleveland Heights. And then the sewer district is the, administers the regional stormwater management program, as I mentioned before. So let's talk a little bit about the Class 1 dam at Lower Lake. So it is regulated by the state of Ohio. It is a Class 1 high hazard dam. When the Shakers built the Lower Lake Dam, they did not build it for flood control. It was not built to modern engineering standards. If the Class 1 high hazard dam were to experience a catastrophic failure or an uncontrolled breach, the state has qualified that as a possible loss of life or significant property damage downstream. Thus why they have such stringent state standards. And one of those state standards is meeting the probable maximum flood, which applies to Class 1 dams that are a high hazard category. What that means is the probable precipitation event that matches that probable maximum flood is about 24 to 26 inches of rainfall in a 24-hour period. A tremendous amount of rain, which seems unlikely, but is possible, and thus the state statute that requires that. That means that the Lower Lake Dam has to either convey all that water through the dam or over the dam, or do both. And so when we were going through the pre-design, this is what we were studying, how to rebuild the dam so that it could carry those kinds of flows. ODNR has given the cities two choices based on the condition of the Lower Lake Dam. You may either reconstruct the dam to meet the state standards and match that probable maximum flood, which is 100% of the probable maximum flood. Right now, Lower Lake Dam only provides 2% of conveyance for the probable maximum, which is woefully inadequate and out of compliance. Or the other choice is to remove the dam. I'm not going to go through the details of this graphic, but it does show the different deficiencies. And the important one that I'm going to focus on this evening is the right crest or the top of the dam. It's low. That's adjacent to North Park Boulevard. You probably may have seen the water spill out over the dam and into the North Park Boulevard and on into the Coventry intersection. And I'm going to show you some images of what that looks like if you haven't seen that. But that's a significant deficiency for the dam. The dam is earthen material. It's not protected. So repeated flows over the top of the dam can cause erosion and it could fail. And so this is the location where that's at. And you can see the flood waters escaping out of the right side of the dam. So what that picture on the right is seeing, you're seeing the Charter Oak. You see Brook Lane or Brook Road, also known as Lover's Lane. And you can see the flow coming over. This was a 2021 event in July. About the 2-year storm event is when the dam starts to be overtopped, which is not a lot of rain for our area. So I'm going to walk you through some of the modeling graphics. And these are the graphics that we put together based on our revised modeling here in 2025, which is using a technology called two-dimensional mesh stormwater modeling, where we are able to gain greater accuracy in understanding what's happening. So the large yellow or bright blob you see is Lower Lake. You can see the intersection just above, and I'm just going to walk through these different storm events so you can see the flooding of the intersection. So we've modeled this and we understand when it happens and how it happens and how severe it is. And this is all the way through the 100-year event. So we need to address this because we've got a transportation issue here with the brook basically spilling out into the intersection from Lower Lake Dam. The other problem area that is part of this equation is the University Circle that I mentioned. So this is an image that shows University Circle, Case Western Reserve Campus, Martin Luther King Jr. Drive, Stearns Road, Parkside Dwellings, which had some water rescue in the Parkside Dwelling apartments back in 2021. And you can see the other buildings there. And I'll show you some more images of this area as we go through, but I'm going to show you the same images. So on the right of the screen, you can see some highlighting. That's the Cedar Hill area. That's the water coming down Cedar Hill along the transportation area. Up on the far left is a bright or yellow area. That's the Wade Lagoon, which will be important as I move forward in understanding the Cleveland Museum of Art in the Wade Lagoon. All of this area is conveyed by the University Circle culvert, that 1-mile culvert. So this is surface inundation as we move through the different design storms. And you can see the 5-year event, about 2.5 inches of rain in a 24-hour period. This is all with Horseshoe Lake Dam removed and the Doan Brook restored. What's important here is at the 10-year event, you can see that bluish blob start to form at Stearns and Martin Luther King right at the Case Western Reserve campus. That's where the Doan Brook begins to escape or present itself on the surface from the University Circle culvert. So now it's up on the surface, starting to flood the roadways and the Case Western Reserve campus, Parkside Dwellings. And then we go through the rest of the storm events, 25-year event, 50-year event, 100-year event. Significant flooding in University Circle. Again, it's a low point in the watershed. There's no floodplain. It's conveyed by this 1-mile culvert. We need additional culvert. We need a sister culvert there to help address or improve this flooding condition. So that's what the modeling has been showing us and teaching us. The pre-design, as we moved through pre-design in 2023, brought us additional information. And this is what I'm going to walk through next, is what it means to rebuild the Lower Lake Dam. There's really 4 components that we brought to the public back in October of 2024 to introduce some of the challenges to reconstructing a whole new dam to modern standards in this small park setting with its many constraints. First is the concrete gravity dam. Lower Lake Dam is an earthen dam. It needs to be replaced with basically a large concrete block, which you can see that big square in the middle. So we removed all the earthen dam for a new concrete dam. Pretty significant civil works to do. The idea here is to make sure that that block of concrete would never move during that probable maximum flood event. It's protected, so there'll be a top layer of soil erosion that'll peel away during the worst storms, but yet that concrete block is designed to never move, never fail. The next component is a principal spillway rebuild. I think you all probably know the stoneworks at the dam. It's picturesque, aesthetically pleasing. That would all need to be rebuilt. The size would change a little bit, but all that stonework would have to be redone and repositioned. And so this is just a graphic that we had prepared to show that. Again, that's the spillway that I think most folks are understand. That's the primary source of how the water moves from the lake to the brook. The third piece was the very large auxiliary spillway. And so we need additional capacity to move that large storm event through or over the dam. The gravity dam helps us move the water over the dam because we know that big gravity concrete block will not move. This auxiliary spillway, which is quite obtrusive in the landscape, is necessary to convey those additional flows. This also would necessitate the removal of all the trees between the current dam and Coventry, so we would have a big opening there as well. We were working to preserve and protect the remaining cultural resources, which are in the corner adjacent to the intersection of North Park, and Coventry. The fourth and last piece are the flood walls. So the flood walls are necessary, the flood walls are necessary to train the water or direct the water over top of the dam, so the water does not escape out to the right like it does now. Those flood walls at the dam would be at least, or will be 8 foot tall. And then they will taper to a lower height as you move towards Fairfax Avenue. Flood walls are necessary on both the North Park and the South Park side of the lake. They're a requirement to, again, direct and convey those flows safely to and through the dam. We recognize that they are not aesthetically pleasing, they're challenged to design, they're quite costly to build. So these were all factors that were coming in as we were understanding the pre-design results in October through January, October of 2024 through January of 2025. So I'm just going to touch a little bit more on the modeling updates in the capacity item in University Circle. So we deployed additional sensors as we were moving through the Horseshoe Lake dam removal and the restoration project there to understand that the design that we were coming up there was effective. And so these additional monitors helped inform our modeling, our current modeling. Additional to that were new storm sewer networks in the local system that feed into the Domebrook. And so you can see on the right, 2021 modeling, not as much, 2025, much more inputs into the model, much better results, greater accuracy of understanding what's happening in the watershed. So we moved through all these additional analyses and helped better inform our decision-making process or the evolution of this recommendation. And then we come to the feasibility study at University Circle for the Domebrook Culvert. The different colors that you see on the screen for those lines are the alignments of the alternatives for the Domebrook Culvert, this sister culvert, if you will. The light blue line is the current alignment of the Domebrook Culvert. The big yellow arrow shows you the alignment that we thought was not feasible until we started to engage with the Cleveland Museum of Art. Cleveland Museum of Art is renovating their fine arts gardens, and it presented an opportunity to work with them. Part of their renovation is going to be to drain Wade Lagoon. And so we are trying to work with them to partner as they construct and drain Wade Lagoon, reconstruct Wade Lagoon and drain it. The sewer district will mobilize and move in and build the sister culvert that will give us additional capacity in the University Circle area to address those specific issues in University Circle. So with this new information, I just want to walk you through that analysis of this University Circle area and what it was showing us. So this is important to understand. There's 3 modeling scenarios that I'm going to show you. All of them have the assumption that Horseshoe Lake Dam has been removed, and we've addressed the issues at Horseshoe Lake Park. The first modeling will show you the existing condition with the current Lower Lake Dam, and then I'll show you 2 more modelings that show you with Lower Lake Dam in and Lower Lake Dam out, both of those with the new University culvert installed, the additional culvert. And so this first image just shows you no culvert, no additional culvert at University Circle. Lower Lake Dam is existing. The polygons, the circle and the polygon below it show you buildings that currently flood. The purple shows 100-year flooding, the pink shows 50-year level of service. When I move to the next image, this is with the new or additional University culvert. We removed the Lower Lake Dam. Those 4 buildings that were previously shown to have flooding conditions no longer flood. We don't need the Lower Lake Dam to address that flooding condition in University Circle. And you'll notice that some of the Case Western Reserve campus buildings that are light blue turn to dark blue. So they go from a 10-year level of service, or they're bettered or increased or improved in their flood protection, going to a 25-year level service or a darker blue. So that's important. That was what we were discovering as we were getting this new modeling information and understanding the pre-design. The last scenario shows, again, the University Circle culvert is, the additional culvert is in place. The Lower Lake Dam is retained or reconstructed. The only difference that we gain from the sewer district gains from reconstructing the Lower Lake Dam in this scenario is the Wickenden building in Case Western Reserve campus moves from a 25-year level of service to a 50-year level of service, which is an improvement in flood condition. However, it's at a cost of, would be about $55 million. And so the district cannot justify making that level of investment for that particular asset in the University Circle flooding condition. So just to reiterate, these results show us that Lower Lake Dam is not necessary to control or improve the flooding condition in University Circle. We do know that the Lower Lake Dam also is not necessary to address the flooding condition in the Coventry or North Park Boulevard intersection. However, if you were to keep the dam and reconstruct the dam, it would address that issue immediate to the dam in Coventry and North Park. So these are, again, the findings. Additional considerations: ecological impact of a lake online to Doan Brook or in stream with Doan Brook, the ongoing maintenance of a new constructed dam. This dam would have roughly a 50-year life cycle. That doesn't mean that you wouldn't do anything for it along the way. There'd be maintenance and operation costs within that 50-year cycle, and then you would likely have to replace that reconstructed investment. And then lastly, the insurance and the liability that the cities are responsible for as dam owners and operators. So that's certainly a consideration. Cost. On the left column, this is dam reconstruction. These are the pre-design preliminary costs to reconstruct the dam. About $44 million to reconstruct the dam. And that's mainly driven by those large civil works that I showed in terms of those four main components of a new reconstructed dam. That does not include addressing the sediment in Lower Lake. Only a portion of the sediment would be addressed in Lower Lake reconstruction. About 5,000 to 6,000 cubic yards would need to be moved around in the lake to reconstruct the dam. The lake contains about 140,000 cubic yards of sediment. So if you were to invest in a reconstructed dam and you wanted a quality Lower Lake that's totally restored, holistically restored, you would need to spend another $11 to $12 million to address that 140,000 cubic yards of sediment. Thus, the price tag of $55 million. Dam removal and stream restoration, again, significantly expensive investment. $37 million to remove the dam, reconstruct the brook through the former lake bed. In addition to that, there's about $6 or $7 million worth of culvert work that would need to be done at the Coventry crossing and the Fairhill crossing downstream to assure that we'd have the correct conveyance or appropriate conveyance, not to have any downstream impacts in the gorge area. So that price tag falls at about $45 million. Now, what's important to understand about these numbers is under the Regional Stormwater Management Program, we talked about the three pillars: reducing flooding, arresting stream bank erosion, and addressing water quality. Because the Lower Lake Dam now has been shown to not address downstream flooding, it's no longer a notable flood improvement that we thought in 2021. The Regional Stormwater Management Program can no longer pay for the reconstruction of the Lower Lake Dam, nor can we pay for the dredging of the 140,000 cubic yards of sediment in Lower Lake Dam. So someone else would have to take on that responsibility of $55 million. However, the district could and will remove the Lower Lake Dam because of its public safety threat within the watershed and its ability to drive up water quality for the Doan Brook. If we were to restore the stream corridor, the district would, under the Regional Stormwater Management Program, pay for that project. And so just in summary, 2021 master plan, we knew a lot. Notable flood control, we decided to move forward with reconstructing Lower Lake. We made an investment of $1.7 million to do a pre-design effort to learn more about that information. Very important. We learned a lot. We also launched that feasibility study in 2023, 2024 to get that sister culvert, that additional culvert in University Circle known to us. Is it a reality? Can we physically do it? The answer now is certain, yes, we can. 2024, that additional culvert alignment is coming to fruition in terms of having a property and a partner that we can work with. And then the 2025 pre-design recommendation that landed in January 2025. We digested that further for a few months before we started to move forward and begin to help the cities understand this new revised recommendation that we're here this evening to speak about. And so with that, the next steps, we'll continue this dialogue. As the mayor had mentioned, we have public information, meetings coming up, public forums next week, and we'll make ourselves available to answer any and all questions on this continuing topic. With that, Mayor, I'll take any questions.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Schauer. At this point, we'll open the floor for questions or comments from the two city councils. Mr. Kuda, if you can hear us, if you want to start by a question from any of your council members.
Thank you, Mayor and Shaker Council, and congratulations, Jerry, on a great career. I'm going to go to Councilman Maddox because he has to leave soon, so turn it over to Councilman Maddox.
Thank you, Mr. President. One of my main questions is just on the slide we were just on in terms of the cost comparison. My question is just a little bit of more information or additional information about what the management of the settlement in that lake looks like at that $19 million tag. Is this a one-time thing? Is this ongoing maintenance? So I just want to get a sense of what that looks like in terms of how you'll handle that. Because with a $12 million price tag in terms of the remove it, I'm just surprised that for the $19 million, it can be maintained. And so any clarity you can provide on that will be helpful.
Yes, Councilman, good question. That $19 million. So there's a lot of sediment that would need to be moved around. Likely a lot of sediment is going to have to come off site. There's just not space to do that. So that price talks specifically to the rearrangement, if you will, of that 140,000 cubic yards in addition to likely haul-off costs. So that's why that number is within the dam removal and the stream restoration pricing.
Thank you.
Question or comment from Shaker Heights City Council. Claytor.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Something that comes to mind when there are a few questions that came to mind, but I'll start with just one now. In the slides where we talked about the flooding and the rain events or the 1, 5, 10, 25, 50-year storm events, can you talk a little bit and just inform a little bit about how, while these storms are classified with that year designation, if we're seeing them more frequently than their name would suggest?
That's a great question, Councilman. I think the best way to answer that is there's a possibility that there could be greater frequencies of those. But from a design standard standpoint, the state has specific standards that we need to meet. And short of those design events, that probable maximum flood event is what qualifies the dam to be in compliance. And certainly we want to address as many storm events up to the 100-year event, which is about 5¼ inches in a 24-hour period, for any asset along the regional system.
And if I can just clarify a little bit, to be a little bit more specific, I think in the past couple of years, have we seen what we might classify as 1, 5, 10, or 50, 25, 50? Have we seen more frequency of events that would be classified as a 15 or 20 or a 10 or 25 year storm event, just to see And I'm asking more specifically because that kind of gets at the safety. If we're thinking about if this is something that can be pushed down the road for another however many years, which obviously cannot, just kind of giving voice to that, and especially if we're seeing these events that are titled as 10 or 25 years that are actually more like every 4 or 5 years.
Yes, Councilman, there is a shift in the frequency and the intensity of these rain events. I think there's no question in that. I think studies have shown that. There's additional studies that continue. There's governmental efforts that are underway to revise what we call the Atlas 14, which faces a lot of our information on the design storms. That will be coming out, and thankfully the current administration was continuing the funding for that to go to an Atlas 15. So once we receive that information, that will be clearer to all audiences. But certainly there is a shift towards more intense, larger storm events. And I think we can all recognize that's evident across the country in the past few years in terms of the events that we've seen unfold.
President Kuda.
Thank you. Actually, I'm going to ask a question because I want to, as I'm listening to the kind of more specific questions about what could be done, let me just get a general question out here. Could public safety and stormwater management be achieved by both dam restoration as well as dam removal and restoration? I think that's an important question because everything you say after this is to me, is going to follow.
Dam reconstruction is necessary if you want to keep Lower Lake Dam. Restoration of the dam repair is not an opportunity, not an option. So it would have to be fully reconstructed in order to be addressed and meet the compliance standards of the state.
I stand corrected. Let me just change it to reconstruction. So what I want an answer to is, can both options achieve public safety?
Yes, Council President. If we were to remove the dam, we would design that stream restoration through Doan Brook such that it would eliminate the flooding at Coventry and North Park and address any possible flood issues immediately downstream. Just to be clear, the University Circle additional culvert, or the sister culvert, helps address or improve the flooding conditions in University Circle. But dam removal addresses public safety. Reconstruction of the dam would also address public safety.
Right,
but there still is a threat of failure of any dam, even if it's new or 180 years old. So that remains.
Understood. Thank you.
Ms. Bixenstein.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sharver, for that presentation. As we consider what to do, it would be helpful to me to understand if there are any adverse environmental consequences of reconstructing the dam and keeping what we think of as Lower Lake. You have a reference to the ecological impact of dams to water quality at the end of your presentation, but I'm just wondering, are there any adverse negative environmental impact to reconstructing the dam?
Yes, Councilwoman. The answer is yes to environmental impact from reconstructing the dam. Water bodies that are in line or receive flow from a stream create a whole host of water quality issues. Lower Lake is again, full of sediment. So as that rain event brings high flows into Lower Lake, the sediments that are closest to the surface are churned up and moved downstream, often carrying, pollutants with them, extra pollutants in the water attached to those sediments and then can move downstream. So there's, not to mention water temperature issues and dissolved oxygen levels at this part of the year in the summertime can be detrimental to ecology and downstream resources. So yes, the answer is it can have a adverse effect.
So it mainly relates to water quality and increasing salinity. Is that it? Or
Water quality, temperature, dissolved oxygen, pollutant loading, all those things. And a healthy lake, needs to have certain depths to make sure that it's of quality nature, and certainly Lower Lake's current condition does not have that.
thank you.
All right, Councilman Petrus.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Sharver, thank you so much for taking time to meet with our councils. The cost of rebuilding the dam was pushed up to $55 million, in part because of the $12 million that's estimated for the sediment removal. Could you help us to understand if there's a legal requirement that the sediment be removed, and if there is, more information about that?
Councilman, there is not a legal requirement to have that sediment removed. As I mentioned in the presentation, there's about 5,000 to 6,000 cubic yards of sediment would need to be removed in order to reconstruct the requirement to either reconstruct to reconstruct the dam, but there's not a legal requirement to address that remaining sediment or the overall 140,000 cubic yards.
So could that potentially reduce the cost of rebuilding the dam?
That would be a cost component that you could choose not to implement. But again, reconstructing the Lower Lake Dam at an investment of $43 million, you would be left with a lake of not great quality adjacent to a new dam.
Mr. Malone.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Sharver. I think I speak for many of us when I say that I'm a little frustrated, having thought that this issue was settled a couple years back. That being said, I do understand. I take your motives to be pure, and don't believe there's any sort of effort to mislead us. And I would like to explore all possible options for preservation of some sort of a water feature at this particular lake. Something that hopefully approximates the current outline of the lake. As opposed to some of the other lakes in our city, this is an asset that's used frequently by the community. It's one of our, I think, greatest assets aesthetically and just, in terms of its nature appeal. I believe I've read that the sewer district might be open to the idea, something that approximates what's been done at Garfield Lake Park, where there's a stream that's disconnected from the water feature hydraulically. Is that something, sort of in a vision at Lower Lake, it could, a stream or almost like a canal could go along the edge of this current lake bed with a pond that essentially could be on the footprint of the current Lower Lake. And it seemed like it might solve several of these challenges that you're talking about. Is this something that the district would be willing, the sewer district would be willing to partner with the cities on to pay for the removal of a dam in that circumstance and rebuild a lake that's disconnected from the stream?
First, Councilman, we recognize the community importance, the historic aspect of the Lower Lake. Yes, we are open to exploring that option. It's too early to give any definitive understanding of what that could be. There's a lot of constraints that need to be worked through, and launching into a pre-design effort such that we did with the reconstruction of the Lower Lake Dam will teach us a lot about those opportunities. We're open to exploring that. Topography, hydrology, those are going to be tough challenges. The district would not advocate for what we call an inline or online pond. So you're referencing Garfield Reservation. That's in the Mill Creek, Wolf Creek watershed. The Cleveland Metro Parks actually moved a historic online pond offline. That would be something that we would explore. Again, there's a lot of challenges with that, but we're open to looking at. It would not likely be of the same size as Lower Lake. It would be a smaller footprint because, again, if the choice were to be to move forward with removal of the Lower Lake Dam and a reconstruction of the Dome Brook stream corridor, we'll need floodplain. We'll need likely some additional resources there in the valley to help dampen the flows as the Doan Brook moves through that space. So that might not be the same footprint left over for any type of water body. So, but we're open to exploring it.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Councilman Posh.
Thank you, and thanks for this presentation. I'm looking at, I believe, is slide 25, which is basically showing the 100-year storm event for the existing, or without Horseshoe Dam, but with the current Lower Lake Dam. If you were to remove that dam, what does the flooding impact of that whole area look like? It seems like we're still going to have flooding in the area where Lower Lake was, unless you do make it one very large floodplain. And I'm not sure how that would even look.
Yeah, Councilman, so if we were to remove the Lower Lake Dam, the flooding that I think you're referencing, immediate to the dam at North Park and Coventry, we're able to convey those flows through the brook and on downstream to the gorge. Now, there are some improvements that we'll need to make that I mentioned, the culvert at Coventry, the culvert at Fairhill will have to be adjusted likely in size to carry those flows. There'll be some additional armoring or stream bank protection that will be needed downstream to ensure that that part of the receiving end of Doan Brook doesn't express any undue erosion. But our modeling has shown us that we can address that localized flooding with the removal of the Lower Lake Dam, simply because we'll be able to use the valley of the former Doan Brook channel or stream to convey those flows safely through that zone of Doan Brook.
I'd be real curious. I would hope in your next presentation to us, we'll be able to see what some of those models are to just ensure the fact that we are not seeing flooding where we're seeing it today or in some other area in that vicinity.
And we can do that. And I just want to make sure I'm understanding your question. You're specific to Coventry and North Park and Cleveland Heights?
Well, I think down the whole stream from Horseshoe Dam down, it's the whole watershed. I mean, right now that dam is holding back a fair amount of water. If that just wasn't there, is it just a faster, deeper current? I mean, maybe that's what you're insinuating by a deeper valley.
Right.
But then what kind of safety is that? Because those creeks in those areas are in populated areas.
Yeah, just to clarify, Councilman. So in addition, University Circle is not, is separate from the Lower Lake Dam. In 2021, we thought that there was some notable flood control by having Lower Lake remain. But now our revised modeling shows us that that is not the case. So the flooding issues in University Circle is solved or improved by the conveyance, additional conveyance in University Circle. And we'll continue to work on the University Circle area in terms of raising as much of those assets, buildings, and transportation areas as we can to the 100-year event. But we'll have to do work in other parts of the watershed, not the Lower Lake reach of the watershed.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Moore.
Thank you. I have two questions. I can do one and then wait for the other, or give you both now. The first one is, when ODNR declared this a Class 1 dam and said that it was not going to withhold the future flooding, there are many people in our community who have great expertise in any variety of areas at any one time. And we are hearing that there are people who are contesting that the cost for your solution to rebuilding the dam, if that should be the choice of two communities, is excessive. And we heard the same suggestion when Horseshoe Lake dam was being talked about to be removed. Who is it, what entity is it that decides whose engineering models, whose flow modelings are correct, and whose solution is sufficient and going to be adequate to the job? This is if it were reconstructed.
Councilwoman, the state of Ohio Department of Natural Resources is the regulatory agency here. So anyone that would want to offer a solution and prove their modeling would need to do so to the state of Ohio Department of Natural Resources.
Thank you. And the second question is, could you please discuss, there is a great movement nationwide to remove dams in all rivers, and it is because of the benefit to the environment. And I wonder if you could please discuss the broad outline of why that benefits the environment.
Well, dams on streams can cause all types of environmental issues, as we've spoken to previously. Water quality, habitat, sediment loading, sediment transport, sediment pollutant transport downstream, changes in chemistry, temperature, wildlife habitat. All these things are problematic when we have dams online. And dams are removed across the country and across the world, frankly, for lots of different reasons. Ecological, environmental reasons are usually a leading factor in that. So here again, the Dome Brook stream corridor and the stream itself would see an uplift in environmental benefit, ecological significance with a dam removal project.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Larson.
Thank you, Matt, for the presentation this evening. I'm really concerned about the last item on slide 56, where you talk about the insurance and the liability of cities as dam owner and operators. I reached out to our finance department to see what we might spend currently on our liability insurance. I've not gotten a response. So do you have a general ballpark figure in terms of how much that would cost or should cost the city to maintain that liability insurance?
Councilwoman Larson, I do not have a ballpark or an estimate on that cost. However, based on your comment, I will comment that we've commented that the estimates that we've looked at in terms of downstream impact could be in the tens of millions. And that's really based off of recent incidents or catastrophes that have happened. Most notably, closest to us, the Midland, Michigan, back-to-back dam failures there that flooded out the local village below. Luckily, there were no fatalities there, but two dams broke or had uncontrolled breaches at the same time, and they had tens of millions, upwards of $100 million worth of damage, our understanding.
Thank you, Matt.
Suzanne Williams.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation tonight. It's very helpful and informative. And it seems to me that we're building on several blocks here to get to this end result. So the Art Museum doing this project, which would allow White Oval to be drained, which would allow this sister culvert to be put in. And could you provide a little more understanding where the Art Museum is with their project, whether these are, where we are, how definite is this that these steps are going to go in place before we make our decision?
Yes, Councilwoman. So we've been dialoguing with the Cleveland Museum of Art for some time now, greater than a year's time, I believe. They are moving forward with their project, and they've shared their schedule for their phase 1 project graciously. And we've continued to coordinate in understanding how the sewer district could incorporate ourselves with our project into their schedule. So we're trying to work with them to match schedules as they move forward. Phase 2 is where that would happen. So I know they're working towards their design efforts in understanding the timeline for phase 2. We're dialoguing with them now on a shared draft agreement to execute such project. And so we hope to have that executed soon so that we can have more certainty in terms of delivering that additional culvert to the watershed.
Matt, I have two related questions. Horseshoe Lake, Cleveland Heights had about a third. I think Shaker had 2/3. Where is the boundary for Lower Lake? as percentages for each community.
Yeah, Council President, I don't have those numbers for us this evening, but that's been requested and we're working on to get that. So we'll share that with the two cities probably later this week to give you that more refined understanding.
Yeah, I'd like to hear that. And my related question is, when we came up with the $7 million between the two communities for the amenities at Horseshoe Lake, we thought that's, you know, kind of like we gave at the office, you know. Now, I don't know what's going to happen with Lower Lake as far as if you were to remove the dam and restore the watershed there, the streams, are you going to be asking the communities for amenities for that area?
Council President, I think that's a discussion that continues. The district will be covering the cost of the dam removal and the stream restoration and sediment issues if the cities choose to move forward with its decision to reconstruct or remove the Lower Lake Dam. The amenities portion of this discussion, I gather, would unfold when we follow a similar process of public forums that we did with the Horseshoe Lake Dam removal discussion. And that will help, I guess, inform the potential for decisions by the cities to include or not include amenities. And so we can help advance that discussion through the public forum process.
Yeah, I think the answer to those two questions will be very important as we kind of view this holistically as to what's all going to be involved. So back to you, Mayor.
Thank you. Ms. Kaus.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the presentation. I just had a clarifying question. I wanted to make sure I understood. If the dam is reconstructed, it has a 50-year life cycle, meaning that in 50 years, we will basically be having this conversation again?
Councilwoman, that's possible. So that's a generalization based on the civil works, that it would be in the neighborhood of a 50-year life cycle. And at some point, us in the future could be revisiting the same topic with similar issues.
President Kudo, back to you.
Yeah, Councilman Petrus.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Sharver, just for clarification, even if our cities wanted to proceed with reconstruction of the dam without the sediment removal and the total cost was lower than the cost of the removal of the dam, am I understanding that the regional sewer district would not pay for that?
That's correct, Councilman. The sewer district would not pay for the reconstruction of the Lower Lake Dam at this point based on our refined modeling and understanding that the dam no longer provides notable flood benefit downstream.
May I ask a follow-up? Thank you. So am I understanding here that in essence, our options are to rebuild the dam where we would incur the total cost of it, which is currently projected to be at about $55 million, or the sewer district could remove the dam and outside of the cost of potential amenities, those costs would be totally covered by the sewer district. Is that in essence a correct summary?
That's a correct summary.
You have an S.
Ms. Williams. Ms. Camilla Williams.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Sharver, and the district. I just wanted to ask one quick question about the public meetings. Will the public receive basically the same presentation that we saw tonight, or will there be a slightly different presentation for the public? And what will the format of those presentations be?
So Councilwoman, yes, the public will receive the same presentation on August 19th. So that'd be next Tuesday evening virtually. And then on August 20th, the in-person opportunities, we'll have storyboards and we'll have district folks available to answer questions in person.
Okay, thank you.
Matt, has there been an assessment of Green, I think it's Green and Marshall Lakes, as far as the health of the dam at Green Lake? And I think I forget which one has a dam, but, and could we be hearing about that in the near future?
Good questions, Council President. So we did look at the flood control, stormwater management abilities of those lakes, both Marshall and Green. Green has been addressed previously. Marshall is a private lake. And so there's, like I said, Green has been addressed and has new structures to address ODNR's compliance issues that lake had.
Thank you.
I think Mr. Clinton or no, Ms. Bixenstein.
Thank you. Mr. Sharver, we have heard from some residents who feel deceived by the sewer district. And it would be helpful if you could explain a little more how the modeling in 21 led the sewer district to believe that having Lower Lake would enhance flood control, but the modeling you did last year led to a different conclusion. Is it only based on the Wade Oval and the possibility of having an additional culvert in that area near the Art Museum, or is there something else?
Councilwoman, so there are many elements to the evolution of this revised recommendation. 2021 Stormwater Master Planning was one-dimensional modeling, planning level modeling. We were trying to understand all the problems and issues up and down the watershed, and then the host of solutions that could be brought to bear to solve those. And recommendations were advanced at that point. Many alternatives were still in the package that needed to be sorted through and studied further, much with any other watershed that we work in the Regional Stormwater Management Program. The additional modeling that we were able to capture by going through the process of designing the Horseshoe Lake Park restoration helped inform the model. We moved to the two-dimensional mesh stormwater modeling, which is essentially mapping the surface or the lay of the land, if you will, to understand how the water, when it floods, moves over the surface and then moves back into the brook, whether that be through a catch basin into a storm sewer or overland flow into the brook. So we had much greater information, truer information, more accurate information on how that happened. So that was really a result of our efforts to ensure that the restoration of Dome Brook, removing the Horseshoe Lake Dam, would be done such that we wouldn't cause any undue or unnecessary or hurtful issues downstream of Lee Road. So that in combination with continuing that assumption in 2021 that we needed that additional culvert in University Circle, or that sister culvert that I'm naming it now, we knew we needed that. We didn't know how we were going to make that happen, so we launched that feasibility study in 23 through 24. That showed us the different alignments, the pathways that were possible on paper, if you will, but we still didn't know physically how we were going to get it done. And when the Cleveland Museum of Art emerged as a possible property owner that we could work with, that really opened up the door to address the University Circle culvert flooding, which is a separate issue in the watershed. That's that middle part of the watershed, that low point in the watershed. That further modeling analysis showed us that the Lower Lake Dam does not any longer have notable flood control. And when we put that modeling to the in-house tests to really focus in on which assets, which buildings, which road segments, and which utilities within those areas were affected by flooding, what was improved by the Lower Lake Dam still being in place. And what we found was it's one building, the Wickenden building, takes the level from 25-year level service to the 50-year level service. And 150 feet of Stearns Road is improved for flooding condition. So with the investment of $43 million to reconstruct the dam, And if you want a lake that goes with it, that's a quality that I think the community expects to have, you would need to advance that to $55 million. The sewer district under the regional stormwater management program cannot invest in that from a regional stormwater management program perspective.
Councilman Posh.
Can you help us understand the process a little bit more from where we go from here? I mean, I know there's going to be some new timelines. When do you specifically need an answer from the cities on whether or not we want to accept this recommendation and we want to move forward with what you're suggesting? And how far along will you go to give us more information on what a stream restoration project actually looks like so our community can better understand this?
Great question, Councilman. So we have a lot of work to do, and it takes a lot of time to do this work. So let me give you a sense of schedule if we were to move forward with concurrence on a recommendation to remove Lower Lake. The district would need to launch into a pre-design effort. It would take us a little bit of time to ramp up to get into that pre-design with new consultants in our internal team. It would take us at a minimum a year to go through that process. Then once we learned that new information under that pre-design process, which would inform the public forum process, the questions about can we orchestrate another water body feature, how best to position the stream in the floodplain, can we upsize the culverts that we need to at Fairhill and Coventry, all that information would be better known in pre-design. Then we would need to advance into at least probably a 1 year, if not longer, detailed design. Similar process that we've been going through with the Horseshoe Park restoration. So we're looking at 2+ years of design effort, 1 year pre-design, 1 year detailed design, and then a public forum process all along the way that enables the public to engage with us, inform the decision-making, and then ultimately we'd have to come back to the cities to have the concurrence to move forward with construction. And I guess just a follow-up on your question about the time and when a decision needs to be made, I'll say this about the dams, both Horseshoe and Lower Lake dams. They are vulnerable. That is why the state of Ohio has a dam safety program. That's why they're classified as high hazard dams. Again, if they were to have a catastrophic failure or an uncontrolled breach, which I understand it's never happened to these two dams, but I think collectively as government bodies, we would not want that to happen for various reasons. The clock is ticking against us. You all see what's happening in different parts of the country, the different types of storm events. Question was asked earlier about intensity, frequency. It's happening. I have no way to predict what will happen or how long these dams will continue to survive different storm events. We know that Horseshoe Lake Dam is well compromised in its deterioration of the voids and piping that are occurring within that dam. Lower Lake is in a slightly better condition in terms of its earthen embankment, but again, it overtops during the 2-year storm event, which is not a significant storm event. Repeated 10-year events, 25-year events, which can happen multiple times a year. You can have a back-to-back 100-year event, hurricane seasons. These are all realities that as dam operators and dam owners and administrators of a regional stormwater management program need to understand. So the vulnerability is real. And so time is of the essence from that perspective.
I'm going to hop in here for a minute. I think there's one more question on this end, and then I think President Kuda, if you're in agreement, we'll go to comments from the public because I want to make sure they have an opportunity as well.
Yeah, we have one more question on this end.
Okay.
My question will be brief. I think that your response will be brief. But I think the question that's going to be on a lot of our constituents' mind is if the differential between reconstructing the dam and removing the dam is 12 million, around 12 million, around 12 million. Could the funds not be provided or looked for from alternate resources outside of the sewer district?
Councilman, I just want to clarify. There's not a difference in price between dam removal and dam reconstruction. Dam removal and stream restoration is $45 million. To reconstruct the dam is $55 million. The district, under the Regional Stormwater Management Program, would not pay for any portion of that. So if the cities were to choose to reconstruct the Lower Lake Dam, you all would need to proceed with that project at your cost.
Councilman Petrus.
Thank you, Mr. President. My question really follows the councilman's question. If both reconstruction of the dam and removal of the dam resolve compliance issues, could you help us to understand why the Regional Sewer District is unwilling to cover the cost of reconstruction, especially if the cost of reconstruction of the dam without sediment removal is lower than the cost of removing the dam?
Yeah, good question, Councilman. Another opportunity to clarify. Because the Lower Lake Dam no longer provides flood control benefit or stormwater management, the district under the Regional Stormwater Management Program cannot invest in that reconstruction of the Lower Lake Dam.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Sharma, for the questions from council. We will now go to comments by the public. Just want to reiterate the protocols that I'd mentioned at the start. Just by way of show of hands, who anticipates making a comment tonight? Okay. Okay. And of that, how many are Cleveland Heights?
Mayor, we only have 2.
Okay, and we've got another 7, 8, 10 here. So we may just, we'll do the back and forth with Cleveland Heights, Shaker Heights, but it may be, we do some after the year 2 there, we may jump back over to our side. I saw the gentleman there. We'll, if you wouldn't mind, we'll bring the microphone to you, sir. Yeah. Yeah. Just as a reminder, we've requested no more than 3 minutes.
I'm with Shaker Heights. A couple of questions. Or who owns the land? If the lake gets drained, who owns the land under it? Is that the city of Cleveland? So we're leasing it. So that land is now right directly next to Cleveland. Now, we got 2 holes if it gets drained. We got 1 hole right now, which is Horseshoe Lake, getting a nice park. I think they've done a very nice job designing that and filling it. Then we wind up with a 2nd hole if it gets drained with this. And then you can ask about the amenities and everything. And he's seen me before. It'll be the same amenities, a stream and some walkways, and the cities will pay for them because he's already told you. And the Cleveland, what keeps the city of Cleveland decided to not lease it back to us and put a nice apartment building right there because it's right adjacent to the city of Cleveland. It'll be a vacant lot adjacent to, and I don't know the legal requirements. I'm just bringing it up as a question. I could go on for 4 or 5 other issues that you brought today, but I'll stick with just that one issue.
If we missed your name and address when you started.
Pardon me?
We missed your name and address when you started.
Oh, I'm sorry. Paul Creighton, 2868 Winthrop Road, Shaker Heights.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
That Miss Jakey sitting there, Jerry. Congratulations on retirement. She can give you my background. Thank you.
Since we had a Shaker Heights resident, we'll go to Cleveland Heights. President Kuda, do you want to have?
Sure, go ahead, Addie.
Don Barber.
You know the drill.
Do I have a live microphone here? Thank you. I'm John Barber, a native of Shaker Heights, resident of Cleveland Heights, co-founder and co-leader of the Friends of Lower Lake. For 8 years, the Friends of Lower Lake have contributed over 10,500 volunteer hours, stewarding the land around Lower Lake.
Please, as with respect to, be respectful to those speaking. Please, thank you. Mr.
He's
Barber,
talking
go ahead.
about, yeah.
The Friends of Lower Lake have contributed over 10,500 volunteer hours stewarding the land around Lower Lake, removing invasive plants and planting thousands of native trees, shrubs, and flowering plants. We've learned so much about the human history and natural history of Lower Lake. Today, we see a beautiful Lower Lake on its surface, but the lake water is contaminated with road salt, silt infused with gasoline byproducts, lawn chemicals, and lawn fertilizers, and in the summer, starved of oxygen. No frogs or salamanders live in or around it. Non-native common carp were introduced as a food source to Lower Lake in the 1890s and quickly became the dominant fish species. The lake is very shallow due to silt accumulation from upstream. As we saw when the lake was last drained in 2019, trash litters the bottom with shards of broken glass bottles and rusted metal that makes wading in the lake dangerous. We don't want the cities to invest in concrete maintenance trying to meet the requirements of ODNR. We want them to instead invest in watershed health and parklands health. All over the world, governments are voluntarily removing dams and the rivers and finding that the rivers and brooks recover quickly, both ecologically and aesthetically. Let's restore a free-flowing brook at Lower Lake now. Thank you.
Thank you. Just as a reminder, because of the number of people that want to make comments, we're unlikely to respond unless it's very, very easy. We probably will not respond tonight. So you'll get answers at the next public meeting. With that, someone from Shaker, feel free. I just saw the gentleman right here. Would you go ahead? Yes, please, up the microphone so we can everyone can hear you.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to thank the city councils for public comment time today, especially since I understand that this was initially a work session closed to the public. My name is Hal Madorsky. I am a lifelong resident of Shaker Heights and a graduate of Shaker Heights High class of 1968. I live on Shaker Boulevard, 16500. I've been involved in this issue for years now. At its earliest days, I was told by sewer district staff at a meeting on Horseshoe Lake Dam that the lake would be preserved and that the dam would be rebuilt using as many of the historical Shaker stones as possible. Then the sewer district changed the plan to removal of the dam and destruction of the lake, despite professional engineering studies that would have provided for a far less expensive alternative that would have preserved Horseshoe Lake. Does this sound familiar to what is now happening at Lower Lake? It should. It's history repeating itself and straight out of the sewer district playbook to distract, deflect, and bully cities like Shaker Heights. To those now here because of Lower Lake, don't be distracted by alternate plans put forth by the sewer district. These are bait and switch tactics, business as usual, using your rate-paying dollars. Watch out for these shell games, like the sewer district's attempt to blame the lakes continuously for flooding at University Circle. I will tell you that years ago, at the onset of this, I submitted public records requests to the city of Cleveland and to the sewer district in light of these claims of flooding. And I asked for proof of property damage, fatalities, personal injuries. Not one document has been produced to this day.
Mr. Madorsky, 15 seconds.
Thank you. Now we all have another chance to restore Horseshoe Lake and preserve Lower Lake. Let's find a way to work together to protect these rare community assets for future generations. Save Shaker Lakes. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Lamar Shepard.
President Kuda.
Yes, we have Lamar Shepard coming up to the microphone.
Hello, my name is Lamar Shepard. I live at 2821 North Park Boulevard, directly across the street from Lower Lake. And I guess I have a comment. Sorry, I don't have anything written. I've been living there since 2015. And ever since I lived there, from the year of 2022, I've received about maybe minimum a foot of water in my basement. Sometime in the year of after, like right before Horseshoe Lake, they decided not to use Horseshoe Lake and the dam anymore, I received 3.5 feet of water, and it happened about 3 times during those years. I'm bringing my waders because I can actually, you can visually see the line that I put in my waders to show how much water I received in the basement. Since the dam was stopped using the dam, I received no water. Maybe it's also because of the recent construction or the construction on Arlington Boulevard, where there was an outlet being put into the lower lake. Maybe it's a coincidence, I'm not sure. But all I know is that because of this construction and because of not using the dam and the discussion about Lower Lake, I have not received any water in my basement or no water in my backyard. So I guess the comment is, I'm thrilled that the lakes are no longer going to be lakes. I'm just, whichever way, I'm fine with that. With the lakes, I do want to say that it's hard to clean up the lakes when there's always fishing wires and fishing lines and hooks. I'm usually the one cleaning up and volunteering on Sundays to help, keep the paths clear. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. A Shaker resident. Oh, go ahead.
I'm Kathy Smacklow. I live at 2854 Sedgwick Road. Over 90% of original wetlands of Ohio are gone. In contrast to the unhealthy, quite stagnant Shaker Lower Lake, wetlands play a vital role in providing habitat for wildlife and crucial stopovers for migrating birds. They protect water quality by filtering out harmful nutrients and pollutants. Recognition of the importance of wetlands resulted in the Ohio Mitigation Program, which works to protect and restore stream and wetland habitats. At this time of increasing heavy storm precipitation events, the other vital role of a wetland comes into play. Unlike a lake that will overflow its banks and dam, a wetland and its floodplain is able to retain excess water and help prevent severe flooding. Restoring the lower lake area to a stream and floodplain would create a precious gift to nature and all of us.
Thank you. A resident from Cleveland Heights?
We just had the 2 residents, so go ahead, Mayor.
Yes, I'm looking on our end. Yeah, Cleveland. Yeah.
So I'm going to start out with
your name and address, please.
Sorry, Brian Cook, 3323 Stockholm, Shaker Heights. I'm a little emotional on this. I'm going to start out with a kind of a soft comment, and then I'm going to have several things that I've written down as this evening has gone on, which are more comments than statements. I think the question I didn't put this together beforehand, but I think the question that we'd all like to know is, how can the sewer district and the cities work together to not only preserve a community asset, but also serve to lessen the risks of downstream stormwater management in a way that it is productive to both the communities and the financial sensibilities of the regional sewer district? I have not heard that addressed at all tonight. Shaker and Cleveland Heights are unique communities. There isn't one person that says, when I say, where do I live? They say, oh my God, I love Shaker Lakes. It's a point of pride in both Shaker and Cleveland Heights. Several years ago, when my son and I would go down in Donebrook Gorge, and I talked to some people in the planning department about how the gorge is managed, and they basically said it isn't. I don't know if you've been down there, it's a wonderful area. I asked more questions about Shaker Lakes. I said, what's going on with the dams? And they said, well, we don't really spend time on the dams because it's a shared asset and we have valuable resources. So they're just existing. We don't spend time on them. I was very disappointed with that answer. And I am still today. It's very difficult for any one individual to raise something like that to the consciousness of a community. But in some aspects, I feel faulted because I knew in 2005 or 2008 that the dams were at risk. But I didn't know what to do. The reason that there's silt and cans in the bottom of the lakes is because we haven't maintained them. And yes, it's a created asset. It's not a natural lake. Back in '88, when Horseshoe Lake was last cleaned, I remember that because I was interning downtown and I drove by and saw a barge in the middle of the lake. And I was like, what's going on? No one else could remember that from back in that time. 15? Okay, well, check email or check the Shaker because I have so much to say on this. The Shakers weren't dumb. There was a sluice on the north side, a second drainage area that probably pretty much protected North Park. That's been closed and not accessible. I'm kind of curious, is there a way to do that? Secondly, is there a way to manage the lake and that we could reduce the water level prior to a storm event or in anticipation of a storm event, which could then be able to manage some storm water? I'll stop there. More to come.
Cleveland Heights, correct? Ma'am?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Penny Allen, 3118 Edge Hill Road in Cleveland Heights.
Sorry, your name?
Penny Allen.
Yes, thank you.
And current president of Friends of Horseshoe Lake. Look, I want to emphasize to you all that you should take the sewer district's statements with a grain of salt because they weren't completely honest with us on Horseshoe Lake. They tried to blame Horseshoe for flooding downstream and in University Circle when Horseshoe Lake had already been drained. Not only that, there was a dam breach in the 1930s and there was no flooding downstream at that time. I wanted to depart from prepared comments a little bit to address some of the questions that have come up. First of all, the lakes do have tremendous wildlife value. Horseshoe Lake itself, and I looked at eBird data from 1990s to just before the lakes were drained, some more than 50 species of migratory aquatic birds were regularly seen there on migration. And Lower Lake is also a birding mecca. It seems to support that wildlife quite well. And with draining and a small palastrine wetland, which sounds so romantic, in Horseshoe Lake, this will be a pretty small puddle that dries up and will not support a whole lot of migrating birds coming through. I'm sorry. Also, you should take their cost estimates with a grain of salt. In 22, they were estimating Lower Lake dam maintenance and restoration at 13.6 million, and now it's up towards 50. I'm not sure we should trust that. Our engineers from TRC estimated a cost for a Horseshoe Lake dam that could be a class 2 dam and regulate water levels at a cost equivalent or lower to what the sewer district was talking about at the time. So, okay. And to answer another question, yes, there's a legal obligation for Shaker Heights and Cleveland Heights related to the lease. And the lease to the cities requires that Cleveland Heights and Shaker Heights perform dam maintenance and dredging.
Thank you, Ms. Allen.
Okay. We can find the funding for it.
Resident from Shaker Heights? Then we'll come back. Oh.
Okay. Corby Roberts, 3390 Clayton, Shaker Heights. So the most important red flag here is the fact that if we want to keep our vitally important city lakes, our park lakes, which have a right to be here by legal deed, that we're being told by the sewer district that they won't contribute any of their funds. Remember, this is money that we pay the sewer district from our monthly fees. And they use, and whether the lakes are there or not, they are dependent upon the Dome Brook for their stormwater management. They still use it. It drains the watershed. So they are obligated to put some funding back into our cities without making us get rid of our very important cultural assets and historical legacy places. That Dome Brook, which no one's talked about, is on 2 national registers of historic places. It contains archaeological sites, potential Native American sites, as well as early settler, and the Utopian Shaker Society, which was very important to American history. The sewer district in their Horseshoe Lake plans made no efforts, despite the community outreach and all of our pleas, to save any of that history in the stream, including dumping cement through the Shaker Dam and putting pipes through on one of the remediations when there were other alternatives. And this is the whole point here. There are alternatives to all these plans. And there's no reason why even the environmental groups, with 65 miles of streams on the Near East Side in culverted pipes underground that could be opened up to the air and benefit our planet, for some reason, people are targeting our Shaker Lakes. 17 acres of the lower lake and 14 acres of the upper lake. That small real estate, people want that real estate for whatever reason, when there's plenty of other areas that could be rehabilitated. The flooding in University Circle
15 seconds.
is because they've built up the urban city on what used to be parkland. That University Circle is the floodplain for Dome Brook at the bottom of the Portage Escarpment. And no amount of tearing down our dams up here are going to remediate that. And our lakes are freshwater, upper Dome Brook, wildlife sanctuaries and needed migratory bird sanctuaries, and they are not polluting. One last thing, the United States Army Corps of Engineers has not approved their digging up our Shaker Lakes yet. I want you to know that. Also, the state of Ohio and the
It's fairness to everyone who's been waiting to make a comment.
that either. Thank you. Please look at alternatives. Sorry.
Is Cleveland Heights resident? Yes. I'll come back. Name and address, please. Name and address, please.
Melody Joy Hart, 2976 Monmouth Road, Cleveland Heights. Neo-RSD has completely lost credibility. It was challenged before when they emptied Horseshoe Lake Dam. It said they would rebuild the dam and then didn't. They got through council by promising that Lower Lake would be maintained and that the dam would be replaced. Now suddenly that has changed too. So what next? As to the cities, we need to step up. They're only concerned about stormwater, not the value of history or the amenities we have. An option could be for them to put their funds in and then we pay the difference. The cities of Shaker Heights and Cleveland Heights have a lease charging with maintenance of dams, and this has been neglected. It's time to hear the people and do the work that is required. Obtain grants and a portion from NEORSD. By the way, they did say that the dam and the culvert would alleviate flooding on Coventry and North Park. Obtain grants, get them to pitch in, and then these cities can issue a long-term bond. That's what long-term bonds are for.
You issue debt like you buy a house. You issue debt for 30 years, you pay it off, dam's worth 50 years, and then you save money again to be ready for the next round. Rebuilding that dam and adding another culvert seems to accomplish that. It's important that the cities, both cities and the NEO-RSD, actually work together to save an amenity and not just culvert all the water. We need to step up to our role and they need to step up to their role in making this work.
Thank you, Ms. Hart. Shaker.
Hello. I'm going to take a little bit of a different.
Your name, I'm sorry, name and address.
Sorry, Amy Weinfertner. I live on the west side of Lee Road on South Park Boulevard. I'm going to take a little bit of a different tact because the sewer district's charter is for engineering. And we've spent, almost 2 hours here, and one person has brought up the fact that we use these lakes every day. Every single day, there are people walking these lakes. I know people, and it was Sean Malone. I just want to call that out. Don't know him at all, but he did bring up a compromise solution that acknowledges the fact that not just our community, our region knows these lakes, and you couldn't buy an investment like that today. You couldn't buy it. It creates trust, which we need in the world right now. It creates solidarity. It creates community. Every day, I know people that have moved from Shaker for various reasons, and they walk their parks and they say, nobody is as friendly as the people. When you walk around a body of water, you will have someone that talks to you, that smiles at you. You will wave back to somebody you don't even know. And that is rare in the world today. So I think we need to elevate the conversation. We know the sewer district's charter is engineering. We know this. But what we need to hear, I know when I was young, my parents said you go to an interview. You don't just talk about what you need. You talk about what you can do for the other person. And everybody that's in here today that uses these lakes, we need a clean lake, yes. And we need to not just worry about 100 years from now, because every single day today we use these lakes. Thank you.
Cleveland Heights resident? Go ahead.
Hi, Vanessa Evans, 2743 North Park Boulevard, 2 houses from Coventry. I've never had water in my basement. Thank you for the presentation today. This gentleman used the words, "we thought," more than 15 times when he talked about 2021. We thought. In 3 years from today, how many times is the sewer district gonna say, well, we thought? I would like the City Council of Shaker Heights and the City Council of Cleveland Heights to demand to see their models and demand to see independent models on what should happen with our lakes. Thank you.
Is Shaker Heights resident, please?
Hi, my name is Ben Monreal. I live at 2733 Wicklow Road. So I've posted on social media, you can look it up under my name, a couple of slideshows and some thoughts on what I think the engineering looks like. And I want to point out the kind of main message to the City Council, and actually kind of not to the sewer district, is when sewer district puts up a $50 million price tag, that's the price tag on a lake designed as a stormwater reservoir at its current volume, its current dam height crest. And that's one of the things that I think drives the flood walls along Shaker, along North Park. And we don't have, if we're thinking about it as an amenity, which is certainly how residents think about it, we don't have to think about it at the current volume and the current height. So two things, smaller is cheaper. And secondly, when ODNR thinks about it, they put a class 1 designation on this dam, not because there's a dam in a certain place, because there's a dam of a certain volume and a certain height in a certain place, and upstream of certain things. They look at all those things when they're considering whether it's class 1 or class 2. So before the city councils decide whether we can afford the replacement dam, I hope that we consider smaller dams that have no stormwater role anymore, which is something that NURSD isn't going to pay for. But if we're paying for it, we don't have to build it with stormwater features. Secondly, the lower we build it, at some point, it comes to the point that ODNR says this isn't a class 1 dam, it's a class 2, it can be earth fill again. Maybe at 14 feet high, it's an earth fill dam. Maybe with a new culvert downstream, maybe it's already a class 2 dam because NURSD's downstream engineering has taken away its failure hazard. The failure hazards are also very complicated, and state regulations allow you to reclassify a dam on the basis of new modeling and new information. So we know we have new modeling already that ODNR probably didn't have when they classified this thing. And as we redesign it and decide how much we want to pay for it, we should look into that modeling and look into how low we can classify whatever we're putting in. And I would love if we did that because I like the lake a lot.
Thanks, Chief. A Cleveland Heights resident.
Hi, my name is Kim Carroll. I live at 2256 Belfield in Cleveland Heights, right close to Coventry and North Park. And I spend many, many happy times walking around Lower Lake, watching the birds, watching them dive down and eat. The peace it gives me is immeasurable. I wave to those friends too, and even people I don't know, and it's a wonderful coming together. And it's the peace, you can't buy that. There's a lot of information that came forth tonight for me. I was listening with tears in my eyes to the very logical explanations from the sewer district, because trying to understand what they're saying. But part of me keeps thinking there's got to be an alternative. There's got to be another way of thinking about this. I didn't realize, I mean, I know that the lake is dirty. I can understand about the silt and all that, but why don't we clean it? That's an alternative. Why don't we come together and do these things to make it a cleaner lake? There's a lot of wildlife there that is just wonderful to see. And I think that the Shakers gave us a legacy that we should treasure and we should take care of. Thank you.
Yeah. A Shaker Heights resident. I'm there.
Hello, my name is Sandra Johnson, 21499 Fairmont Boulevard, Shaker Heights. I've been a resident of Shaker Heights since 1959. A couple of things to note. There's more than one way to skin a cat, and I think we are locked into thinking in one way, and that is not the way I would like, and I think a lot of citizens of Shaker Heights and Cleveland Heights would like this whole situation looked at. I see nothing in the projections of money on what we would call, we used to do cost analysis studies, intangibles. And one of the big intangibles is what is the value of those lakes to people, as you couldn't even buy these lakes if you could construct them. And I would like to suggest that the value of the lake in terms of recreation and everything, I would put it at $1 billion. And when you cut that against the rest you can see that retaining the lakes is huge. And I think I've only probably underestimated the value at $1 billion. I only hope that this travesty of engineering, looking at it one way, will not lead to a true tragedy for the city of Cleveland Heights and Shaker Heights, and to all the community that looks and lives around these lakes, for the people now, for the children, and for future generations to come that have not even been born yet. Because once they are destroyed, they're not going to come back.
I'm trying to get throughout the room. Cleveland Heights, and up here, Cleveland Heights, please.
Erin Flanagan, 3091 Essex Road, Cleveland Heights. I'll keep it brief. In the spirit of cooperation between all three of our groups, which is, I think, a great thing for the sewer company to suggest, I think it's necessary. And to follow on my neighbor's comments, I think that rather than start with the final figures, what we need is not only access to the modeling, but a complete conversation around your inputs that get those floodplains as big and broad as they can be made, or maybe they're not, but we need to know what the inputs are in there. I think we also need to, instead of being presented with a $55 million nut, we need to understand the complete calculation and where those numbers are coming from and how they're derived. So that modeling and those assumptions too. I have learned today that what we're talking about here are actual national historic sites that are protected under federal law, specifically Section 106 of federal law. I don't see any of that in your presentation or any of the historic past papers that you presented to the public. So we need access to that too and answers to that. Because if you are changing anything that is a national historic site, that happens with the permission of the federal government. And I would like to have a conversation around that, both in terms of Horseshoe Lake, which you've already done, but definitely in terms of Lower Lake. And just generally, I have not heard any kind of conversation about an environmental impact study either way. I've heard the lakes are dirty, they have silt. Silt is dirt, so yeah, that follows. But
Ms. Flanagan, your 15 seconds.
any kind of environmental impact study from a qualified environmental engineer, again, by qualified engineers and financial professionals. I appreciate getting the numbers in a snapshot, but I got to see how they flow. Thank you.
Thank you. Shaker Heights? Shaker? Yes. It is.
I'll speak into the mic right here. Jonathan Gawley, 2750 Endicott Road. I think there's been some great points brought up tonight, and we have to focus on what would be the middle ground, collaboration. Did everybody take a look at the plan for the dam with the 8-foot-high concrete wall over 2/3 of the north side of the lake? I don't think anybody wants that, and they're not going to pay for that either. We have to go with Councilman Malone's suggestion where we look at creative alternate designs with less water, class 2 or class 3 dams, some wetlands, some streams, some water. Maybe if we meet in the middle, we can even get them to pay for some of the stuff we're talking about. In the end, we don't want a stormwater infrastructure dam holding back everything to come downtown. We want a pond. We can even rename it Shaker Pond if it's smaller. But we want our water feature. It's a park, it's an amenity. We want to walk our dogs around it and our kids and everything else. And we already have Horseshoe Lake being turned into this marshland, beautiful park. I want to work on everyone in this room to create a solution in the middle that we can afford and will maintain public safety and keep our water feature for Shaker. Thank you.
Thank you. Cleveland Heights resident. Careful, please.
My name's Christine Heggie. I live at 3264 East Monmouth Road, Cleveland Heights. And, oh, sorry. I just wanted to support some of the most recent comments, particularly about the trust and credibility of the sewer district and how it needs to be reestablished with us. What I would say, as some of the other people have said, is that new models have different inputs, like was mentioned. And so in another couple of years, we might get another model and they find out that, hey, the lower lake did provide some floodwater protection. And so then they'll say, whoops, we destroyed the lake, but we had a new model, but oh well. And I find that problematic. And the other thing that I wanted to ask a question about is how much money was spent when you were doing these surveys and so forth, first of all, without having the approval yet for the permit of the 106 section review from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. And second of all, how much money was spent on the inaccurate models that you had and the mistakes you made? How much money was wasted on that? Because that's a lot of money we could have used towards an effective resolution to this rather than throwing things out with the money that was spent on it. So there's just a couple of questions I had about it. And I really think we need to restore trust with the sewer district so that we can believe in what you're doing and move forward in a positive way. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Shaker Heights, please come back.
Hi, I'm Greg Aliberti, Chad Bourne, 3164. And we listened to your long explanation and we appreciated you coming here tonight. And what I came down to is I saw two columns up there. There was a $12 million difference. And now you're refusing to pay what you had agreed to pay for before, which colossal mistake on the sewer district's part not to have, one model, then switch to another model to bait and switch. We lost our other lake. We all okayed that because we were going to be able to keep our lake. Sewer district said we could, and then all of a sudden we can't, and they're just being stubborn and refusing to cover what they already agreed to pay for. And I think that the only fair thing would be for the sewer district to cover the 42 million or whatever it was, and for us to come up with grants and other means to come up with the difference. I don't think that you can promise funds to a community of tens of thousands of people that have paid for the sewer district fees, which are insurmountable sometimes, are quite high on the monthly bill, and then just go and switch it from us. And I won't take my full 2 minutes, but I just think considering this is the sewer district's mistake, they should cover the original expenses and we can come up with a $12 million difference.
Thank you. Cleveland Heights resident? Okay, I think there was a woman in back. Shaker Heights? Yes.
Stephanie Schloss, 13900 South Park Boulevard, Unit 2. I'm here to represent a younger generation of people somebody who's lived in the area. As someone who's grown up running around the lakes, spending time with neighbors and friends, when I look at my community, I realize that this is a place where people can have fun and people like to learn about nature and are happy. And I went to Horseshoe Lake as well, and you just sort of sit there and like, okay, that's a lot of greenery. And what's most important is that yes, we are safe, but that in our everyday lives, we have a place where we can find joy and peace. And while it's expensive, whatever decision is made, what is more important? Having your kids and your grandkids know and understand the history and the joy of our home, or have something change that is important to our city.
Thank you. And Cleveland Heights? If you can find a Cleveland Heights online. Other Shaker, we'll come back.
Thank you. I'm Bill Elliott at 17811 Shaker Boulevard. This is a little bit of a repetition from a previous speaker, but a couple of things I have to say here. Oh, sorry. A couple of things I'd like to say. First off, during the presentation, Matt, I believe, you mentioned that the Wickenden building shifted from a 25 to a 50, or from a 50 to a 25-year floodplain without the dam, if I'm correct. And you said that $55 million was too much to justify that change. Well, that's not the exact amount. The correct number is the incremental difference. And the incremental difference is either 10-ish, $12 million, or actually negative $2 million if you leave out the removal of the sediments. So it seems misleading at best. And the level of trust that we have in this community for the sewer district is very limited, at least in my view. Also, as far as the efficacy of the model, was it not available in 2021? And now we have this super duper model. What about next week? Another model? I find it difficult to believe that we didn't have that technology available to us at that time. Again, trust is not very high when it comes to the data that you all provide. And then finally, in terms of the, let's see, in terms of stormwater management and public safety, if that's what you all are here for, why is it that for less money, we can replace the dam and protect the Wickenden building better versus remove the dam? If you're really for stormwater management and public safety, you should supply money for both alternatives, not just the one. Otherwise, you're basically rigging the game. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take a few more this evening, and then again, we'll have opportunities next week to continue on. Cleveland Heights, I'm still looking for Cleveland Heights.
Hi, I'm Zoe Hayek, 2900 Fairmont Boulevard, Cleveland Heights. If you know anything about my house, you know it's a historical property. My parents bought it in 2008. We took advantage of the housing crisis, and my mom restored it and got this nice plaque that we have in our foyer from the historical museum or whatever for Shaker or Cleveland Heights. And a big part of why we even bought the house in the first place is Shaker Lakes. My parents wanted a nice place for us to grow up and have like a lake where we could have picnics and stuff like that. So I really know like what the community feels for the lake. It is just such like a central part of living in Shaker or Cleveland Heights or in the area. Also, I went to Ruffing Montessori, which our entire science classes were based on the nature center. We learned about germination and stuff like that. So I was just wondering, how would this dam or removal or cleanup or anything that actually happens, how would it affect the nature center? Would the marshes stay? Because if it's affected in any sort of way, then it's like I don't know how long this is going to take, but it's years of children missing out on science classes in roughing. That's all.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll take someone online just because they've been patient. So,
Mr. Tim Kalin, if you would like to speak, we've allowed you to talk.
Hello, I am Tim Callan, 3714 Glencairn Road, lifelong resident of Shaker Heights, and a member of the Friends of Lower Lake. I have been listening to a lot of comments, and I quite understand the emotional nature of this. I love the lake. I've been spending countless hours there every week, but quite honestly, I feel like a lot of people are under the misapprehension that a removal of the lake is somehow removing the amenity, and it's not really the case. It's changing the amenity. So for most of us who are into environmentalism, we are habitat restorationists, we think that the removal of the dam is going to improve the quality of this site. It's not true what some people are saying, that migratory birds won't want to be there, or that somehow it's going to be a degradation. The problem is that people don't invest in these amenities, and then we find ourselves now wondering what to do when the dam is failing. The sewer district, I don't blame the sewer district at all. Their job is to have clean water. The dams are bad for water quality. It's a wonderful amenity when you have a lake to walk around, but guess what else is a wonderful amenity? The Emerald Necklace, which rings our whole county, is a beautiful park system that is based on riparian ways. And in my mind, from Horseshoe Lake all the way down to University Circle, you could have such a beautiful amenity, but it requires people to support that and to participate in it. I heard someone mention that the gorge is unmanaged. That's not true. We manage it, our volunteer hours. And anybody who's really interested in participating and learning why people like me would not have a problem with the lake leaving, I encourage you to come Sundays from 10 till noon. We are there every week, weather permitting, working to remove invasive species, plant native flora for the fauna. And I really think there's an opportunity here to make something beautiful without there being a dam. As much as I would miss the lake, I think people really need to reconsider their feelings and try to think of a way forward that does not require our city to pay for a dam that is nothing but a pond for us to enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kalin. Ms. Simpson, I think you're a Cleveland Heights resident.
Mary Simpson, you should be able to speak now.
Okay, thank you. I'm Mary Simpson. I live at 2644 Hampshire Road in Cleveland Heights. And I'm just curious whether, while we're having these discussions, is the lower lake going to be drained? That's my question. Because the upper lake was drained and then we had the discussions. And I'm just wondering if one day we're going to wake up and see the lower lake drained before we have gotten to the end of these discussions.
No, that is the intent of these discussions, to have that conversation in advance of a decision being made. Thank you. Two more, and then we'll call it an evening for tonight. Shaker Heights resident.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for having the opportunity to talk and listen to all the discussion. Oh, sorry, my name's Chris Rankin. I live on 14303 Larchmere Boulevard, right by that really nice lake. The there's a lot of compelling arguments both ways, whether to keep or not have the lake. But listening to the discussions about the Horseshoe Lake 4 years ago and hearing a very similar conversation that really left us no choice. And then now it's all changed. It's sad to see that dialogue. It's quite upsetting. And, you know, we're taxpayers, we've paid for these services, and to hear that you're coming into our house and saying, "This is my way or the highway." Oh yeah, we could have built a highway through this area one time, but the residents stood up and said, "No, let's not do that." And that's really what I have to say. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. One more shot at Cleveland Heights here. Okay, take one last one. Shaker Heights, please. You got the last word, my friend. Still only 2 minutes, though. Still only 2 minutes.
My name is Richard Margolius, 2646 Wicklow Road, and I'm here to take a different aspect on it. I'm looking at the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District website, and it talks about, under our values, ethics, honesty, and transparency. I think the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District has been anything but less than transparent on this. They started talking about this at the end of 2024, the changes. I've looked at all the board minutes. No mention to the governing board of trustees. Apparently 3 or 4 days before the article was published on July 23rd or whenever, they went into executive session and told the board of trustees. I don't think that's an exception on the Ohio Open Public Meetings. And here's a copy of the law. I'll trade you. You can show me where the exception is that allowed you to have a private executive session to talk about this. I appreciate all the facts and figures you've given me and the council here, both councils. However, I don't like my way or the highway, and I think we're talking to the wrong people. There's a board of trustees that governs Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District, of which members are appointed, and I think our mayor has appointed a couple of them through the Suburban Government Regional Association or whatever. Mayor of City Cleveland appoints a couple. Those are the people we should be talking to about policy of who pays for what. And my only other comment is that it just appears that you looked at the cost and just changed your computer model to show the dam wasn't needed anymore. I don't know anybody in the room who doesn't think that an 8-foot wall is absurd. I also don't know anybody in the room who thinks that if we get 25 inches of rain in a 24-hour period, that without a dam, we won't have flooding in like everywhere in the city. So you're telling us that North Park and Coventry won't flood with 25 inches of rain in a 24-hour period? I think the entire rest of the city will. So thank you very much, and I appreciate you listening.
Thank you. Just to wrap up this evening, first of all, I want to say thank you to the representatives from the sewer district. Thank you for coming and making the presentation. I appreciate both councils and the public coming to listen to the presentation. Hopefully you'll leave tonight with a little bit more information and some things to think about. I know the councils, I think I can speak for both councils in saying that it's a lot of information and a lot to think about. And this is the beginning of the process, and we will continue on, including with the public meetings next week. So with that, thank you all for coming this evening and have a good rest of your evening. We stand adjourned.
And I will adjourn this meeting.